They said it could never be done. They laughed and dismissed it as nothing more than science fiction. Yet today, one car created by a man the world often overlooked has not only proved the doubters wrong but also saved a human life. This is Maxwell Chikumbutso's V2V powered vehicle. And it isn't just another electric car, it is a self-sustaining, communication-ready, life-protecting machine that achieves something nobody expected. But before we explain how this remarkable vehicle became a hero on real roads, we must return to where it all began, to the dream that started everything. In the heart of Zimbabwe, Maxwell Chikumbutso was quietly working on ideas that even the largest technology companies on the planet only imagined in theory. He dreamed of creating a car that required no charging stations, no fuel, and now could even communicate with other vehicles on the road. While many Western firms were chasing after driverless automation and flashy dashboards with 5G integration, Maxwell asked a more urgent question. What if a vehicle could sense an immediate danger and react in time even before the driver understood what was happening? That question gave birth to V2V, vehicle-to-vehicle communication. Unlike the traditional systems designed in big research labs that rely on satellites or cloud servers with heavy internet bandwidth, Maxwell's version was different. His design was direct, peer-to-peer, secure, and lightning fast. Imagine two of his cars driving down the same road. They are not just moving side by side, they are actually talking to each other. They are sharing speed, location, driver patterns, and information about hazards in real time without ever depending on outside networks. Then came the day that changed everything. It seemed like an ordinary, calm evening. A child ran into the road, chasing after a rolling ball. A van came speeding too quickly, unable to stop in time. Disaster seemed unavoidable, but then Maxwell's V2V car detected the threat, noticed the driver had not reacted, and the onboard system made the call. Within the blink of an eye, the vehicle swerved at just the right angle to push the child away from harm. At the same time, it transmitted a collision warning directly to the van's navigation system through its V2V signal. In that split second, one young life was saved, quietly, invisibly, and wirelessly. Experts could hardly believe it. Many declared that the technology was not only impressive, but completely disruptive. If what happened was genuine, then Maxwell had managed to leap ahead of the biggest electric car companies on Earth. Some skeptics were stunned to learn that this creation came not from Silicon Valley, not from Germany or Japan, but from Zimbabwe. The world began asking what this meant for everyone. This was not about a single car or even about one inventive mind. It sent a message that true innovation does not need permission or billions of dollars. Africa was showing it could rise and lead in technology. The next wave of mobility might not come from California's polished offices, but from the streets of Harare. When the rescue incident went viral across social media, governments could no longer ignore it. The Zimbabwean Ministry of Transport issued a statement the very next day. They proudly acknowledged Maxwell Chikumbutso and his team, announcing that Zimbabwe now stood on the global technology map. They spoke of exploring ways to bring this V2V system into their national fleet. But Zimbabwe wasn't the only one watching closely. South Africa sent a team of engineers. India asked for a full demonstration. And to the shock of many, a group of German delegates arrived within days, including representatives from Volkswagen. Why the urgency? Because this car had just broken the long-held belief that only billion-dollar labs in America or Europe could create world-class vehicle intelligence. The reaction from big tech was swift. Tesla fan groups erupted with discussions. Engineers on forums were already trying to decode how a car that generated its own power was simultaneously capable of decentralized V2V communication without internet infrastructure. If this proved authentic, it could make the 5G-centered model of driving irrelevant. Maxwell's cars were not just environmentally sustainable, they were also network intelligent. That was a leap beyond what anyone else was offering. Inside reports from two major EV companies suggested that internal memos had already described Maxwell's breakthrough as a major disruptive risk. In simpler terms, the giants were worried. Meanwhile, in Maxwell's modest workshop, the future was already taking shape. The facility looked more like a local startup garage than a shiny futuristic laboratory, but this was where the core technology lived. Maxwell demonstrated the artificial intelligence module that allowed his cars to make split-second decisions. He revealed the custom mesh communication chip, designed and built locally, not in China, not in the United States. These vehicles were not simply cars. They were like independent agents, capable of sharing knowledge, protecting people, and functioning as a collective network. What began as a single prototype quietly tested on Harare's streets had now become a movement. Universities in Kenya and Ghana were replicating parts of the system. A group of Tanzanian students wrote a research paper titled Decentralized Intelligence in Road Networks, inspired by Maxwell's work. Startups in Europe, particularly in Norway and the Netherlands, had already opened talks about licensing his mesh protocol. Even Maxwell's own project, now called Project Sentience, where he trained rural youth to build affordable vehicle intelligence modules using local materials and open-source tools. But such progress also brought difficult questions. With powerful companies circling around, trying to either buy his patents or undermine them with legal challenges, one ethical dilemma stood out. Should such a life-saving system belong to a single company, or should it remain open for all? Maxwell's response was clear. "We did not create this for control," he said. "We created it for safety." He knew that battles in court might come, but the bigger conversation had already started, a global debate about innovation, ownership, and responsibility. In a world shaped by this vision, old systems would vanish. Traffic lights would no longer be necessary because cars would coordinate among themselves. Charging stations would disappear because energy flowed freely across microgrids. Developing countries would leap ahead, not by imitating others, but by leading with their own solutions. Maxwell had not just built a car, he had redefined the meaning of mobility. At the Africa Innovation Summit, Maxwell addressed a global audience with deep emotion. He did not stand there as a wealthy tech mogul, but as a servant of ordinary people. "When I was young, I wondered why no one made cars for Africa. Today I ask, why not build them for the world from Africa?" His words struck a chord. City leaders and transportation planners from across Africa pledged to launch V2V pilot zones by 2026. In a move that shocked Western media, the United Nations Climate Fund announced a grant of $50 million to accelerate the development of self-sustaining intelligent vehicles, with Zimbabwe as the proving ground. But not everyone cheered. Behind closed doors, some of the biggest auto corporations and oil-funded investors began to feel threatened. A leaked memo from a major car maker admitted that Maxwell's protocol could cut their revenue by 30% by 2030. Legal teams soon mobilized, challenging his patents, calling for bans on untested systems, and lobbying regulators to slow down adoption. Yet Maxwell's cars had already shown themselves to be safer than human drivers. As history has always shown, every revolution meets resistance. The question was whether they would try to crush the future or choose to join it. The vision for the road ahead is vast. Engineers are already working on self-powered ambulances that can coordinate disaster relief without fuel. V2V delivery trucks are being designed to reroute instantly when traffic builds up. Even experimental mobile schools are being planned, vehicles that run on sunlight and intelligence, bringing education to remote areas. This is more than transportation technology. It is an evolution of infrastructure itself, a spark that lit up an entire continent. In a world where everyone said, "It's impossible," one man with determination and a coil of wire answered, "Watch me." Maxwell's V2V car didn't just silence the skeptics, it saved a child's life. It became living proof that a continent often ignored was ready to define its own future. not by copying Western powers, but by shining with its own innovation. In an age where trust is collapsing, emissions are rising, and promises are broken, Maxwell's work reminds us that real innovation changes more than machines. It changes how people live, connect, and protect each other. As factories begin to rise in Southern Africa, as nations sign agreements, and as patents are filed, the world now stands at the edge of an energy revolution. And it was sparked not in California, not in Europe, but in Zimbabwe, with Maxwell Chikumbutso's small, quiet, life-saving car. And to think, it all began with a simple coil.